Thank you very much, Sonia, and I hope that I don't need to interrupt you after 20 minutes. I'll look out for the time.
I have my phone right here. I'm going to be checking the time.
Wonderful. So well then, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your introduction. I'm going to share the screen now. Hopefully everything goes well.
Yeah.
I hope you can see it. I'm going to make the presentation larger. Okay, that should be working, I hope. So thank you very much for your introduction. On behalf of my colleague Martin Ološtiak, who could not be here today, and myself, I would like to present to you a rather specific approach to neologisms and their dictionarization in Slovak linguistics. Our research of neologisms in Slovak is based on the premise that language change, and in that lexical change, is connected to historical turning points. This has been a very prominent feature in Slovak language, as Slovakia, Slovaks, and the language with them have experienced a number of significant shifts in the past 30 years. First, there was the Velvet Revolution of 1989, which has caused the change from the socialist government to the present-day democracy. Then there was the dissolution of Czechoslovakia in 1993, after which Slovak Republic came into existence as an independent state. Slovak Republic's accession to NATO and the EU structures in 2004, and then adoption of euro as a currency in 2009. All of which caused changes in all areas of life, social, society, politics, economics, culture, and so on. And of course, running along all of these changes is the ongoing technical and communicational revolution. However, despite all of this, despite these prominent changes and the language facing an influx of new words and new expressions, Slovak linguistics did not take interest in systemic documenting of these new words, creating a rather significant gap in collecting neologisms, as well as any type of specialized research into the field of neology. The project of Dictionary of Slovak Neologisms represents the first attempt to document Slovak neological lexicon, and is rather specific in that it is not housed by it is not a large project based on extensive research that would be housed by a representative authoritative institution such as Ľudovít Štúr Institute of Linguistics, which is under the umbrella of the Slovak Academy of Science. It is being developed at the University of Prešov. And unfortunately, given that its researchers are also full-time lecturers, we only have a limited time on our hands to dedicate to the matter. And so therefore, the Dictionary of Slovak Neologisms needs to be regarded as a trial project with only limited opportunities, unfortunately. The reasons for studying neologisms in Slovak, and of course any other language, can be listed as follows. Of course, the linguistics reasons are rather obvious. Studying, describing, and explaining lexical units, including neologisms, is one of the main tasks of linguistics and lexicology. The task of neology to study and analyze neologisms in multifarious ways. But of course, the non-linguistic reasons do also need to be taken into account. Prescriptive aspects, so giving information to users of the dictionary, to the public, on spelling, meaning, pragmatics, and other aspects of new words and expressions, is a tradition in Slovak linguistics and in Slovak lexicography. So the users of Slovak lexicography works expect to obtain this information from the lexicography works. And also, of course, neologisms can be regarded as a characterization element of a period in which they were created. And so they can also later be useful as a research material for history, sociology. So to kind of provide this chronicle of time as the vocabulary was evolving is also important for us, and that's why we started the project. There are four main ways in which neologisms and newness as a concept can be approached. First is the synchronic diachronic perspective, which is the description of synchronic dynamism of the lexicon with regard to extralinguistic reality. From this viewpoint, for example, the Slovak words bezdomovec or boulevard can be considered still new because the phenomena that these two words name were not present in the Slovak cultural reality before 1989. Then we have the user-oriented perspective, so the perception of newness as the users view it. As buzzwords, as Newman calls them, or as vogue words, as David Crystal uses this term, or ephemeral words, as is the term that is used in Slovak linguistics. Then we have the language-oriented perspective. So only the lexemes that entail a significant change in the lexical system should be regarded as new. Slovak linguist Juraj Dolník lists an example of a neoclassical compounds with a combining word form mega, which of course with its meaning the highest degree of something, enters a synonymic row with other words that use the combining word super, so superstar or megastar, and in that this combining form mega enriches the lexicon in qualitative terms, as opposed to other words which are formed on the basis of pre-existing models. They do not count as neologisms in this approach because they only enrich the lexicon in quantitative terms, not in qualitative terms. And there is the speech-oriented perspective, which are the lexemes occurring in actual utterances for the first time. Only those can be considered new in this perspective. For the reasons that I stated previously, for the lack of the continuous excerption in Slovak, the synchronic diachronic perspective is preferred in compiling our dictionary because of the existence of neological gap. With full awareness of the possible contradictions to other perspectives of newness, we deem it the most appropriate to quote-unquote catch up with the neological gap that exists in Slovak linguistics. And now onto the dictionary itself. According to Svensson's typology, the Dictionary of Slovak Neologisms is a specialized restricted dictionary of a certain lemma type, which aims to provide linguistic information on approximately 13 to 15,000 new words, meanings, and expressions. We use the year 1989 as a reference point because of the reasons that I stated previously, but also because of the linguistic reasons, as two important lexicographic and lexicological works were published at the end of 1980s. First, it was the Comprehensive Dictionary of the Slovak Language in 1987, and then the monograph, which maps the evolution of Slovak lexicon from 1950s all the way through the end of 1980s, which is called the Dynamics of Contemporary Slovak Vocabulary. Of course, they have their Slovak names and titles, but I just for the sake of saving space, I've only included the translations. With 1989 being a reference point, we also face the issue of the inclusion or exclusion of the so-called obsolete lexical units, such as Walkman or disketa or kuponová privatizácia. We decided to include them in our database just because the majority of these terms have never been dictionarized, not even in the re-edition of the Comprehensive Dictionary of the Slovak Language that has since been published in 2003, and simply just do not stand a chance of being dictionarized ever again. So just for the sake of being the chronicle that we attempt to be, also of the time and evolution of the vocabulary, we decided to include them as well. In the second part of the presentation, I would like to explain to you our specific approach, what has been done so far, and what we are planning on doing in the future years. The research as such can be broken down into three main stages. The project originally began as a project, quote unquote, that could be implemented through bachelor and diploma thesis. This started with my colleague Lucia Ološtiaková as a supervisor of the first group of 3 students in 2012, which I was actually a part of this first group. And over the years, by the year 2019, when this stage ended, 29 of these theses were elaborated in total. And because of the existence of the gap, neological gap, and because Czech linguistics is much more developed in the field of neology, they have a project of systemic excerption going on since the early 1990s. Actually, my colleague Lucia Ološtiaková pitched this idea with a colleague from the Institute of Czech Language, Albena Rangelová, to actually source the Czech dictionary and use it as a sort of a way to fill in the gap that has been here for the past 20 years. The students were tasked with suggesting Slovak equivalents for Czech neologisms that were included in the dictionaries Nová slova v češtině 1 and 2, and then checking for their actual existence in corpus databases, in Slovak National Corpus and in the Aranea web corpora. 5 occurrences in different sources were considered as sufficient for an item to be included in the database. And of course, students then created dictionary entries based on the items that they were able to find. At the end of 2019, this was the basis of the dictionary, and it was comprised of approximately 11,000 entries. And that brings me to the stage 2, where around 2015, we have started to look for different ways how to extend the database using other methods other than just sourcing the Czech dictionary. And this brings me to the word formation. In Slovak and any other Slavic languages, word formation, derivation, and compounding plays a key role in the process of lexical change. The ability of a Slavic word to become a basis of new word is one of its most significant features. In this way, word formation nests come into existence. This feature strongly affects neologisms as well, of course, and in order to extend the database, in 2015, a partial database was compiled out of the material of the first 3 bachelor theses, which was a total of about 1,200 items, and consequently, the word formation reconstruction method was implemented. This method takes use of the already collected and attested neologisms, which are treated as members of word formation nests since word formation relations are evaluated. An example of such a reconstruction of a word formation nest, the words marked with asterisks are not neologisms. They are not treated as neologisms. They were present in the Slovak vocabulary in the pre-1989 era. But the words that are underlined, so the word sprayer, which is the Slovak word for graffiti artist, and the verb nasprejovať, which means to spray paint, perfect aspects, as opposed to the imperfect aspect sprejovať, were part of the original database sourced from the Czech dictionary. And as you can see, the other 6 words included we were able to add because of using the word formation nest reconstruction. They were, of course, first suggested, and then they were attested in the corpus databases and included in the database. So you can see, for example, we have the possessive adjective sprejero, so belonging to a graffiti artist, sprejerka, a feminine form, sprejovanie, spray painting, so verbal noun, etc., etc. Using this method, we were able to extend the database and include predominantly these types of lexemes, so adjectives formed from nouns, adverbs formed from adjectives or nouns, feminine nouns, of course, diminutives. I'll give you a few seconds to look at the examples. And also verbal nouns, as you could see also in the example, agent nouns, names of persons formed from nouns were the most prevalent categories that we were able to add to the already existing database. And now the current state, so where we are now. Since sourcing of the Czech dictionaries, volume 5 was published in 1996, the second one in 2004, have left us with another rather large gap of approximately 15 years, so from 2005. We have come up with a few methods how to cover the period in question. And these include already existing texts focusing on Slovak neology, published after 1989. There are not many of them. There are a few that can be used, however. For example, the sections in Slovak linguistic journals Kultúra slova and Slovenská reč have been mapping to a certain extent the evolution of Slovak lexicon from the mid-90s up until 2015. Then comparison of currently published 3 volumes of the Dictionary of the Contemporary Slovak Language and Dictionary of Orthography and Grammar with pre-1989 editions of Comprehensive Dictionary of the Slovak Language and its predecessor, Dictionary of Slovak Language, and of course inclusion of these items that were not found in the pre-1989 editions. Then attesting new words taken from Polish dictionaries of neologisms, since Polish, along with Czech and Slovak, is another West Slavic language. Then the manual excerption of mass media, so we finally got to excerpt some neologisms on our own. This is going on right now, preferably including the newest words. And also natural language processing techniques and corpus-based methods. For example, building a set of word forms based on comparison of 2 versions of Slovak National Corpus, one released in 2013 and the second one in 2020, is currently being planned. And the candidates for neologisms are, of course, those lemmas from the newer version that were not part of the older version in 2013. And also a cooperating university, the Technical University in Košice, is currently working on a database comprised of lemmas from 2 of the most popular blogging sites on the Slovak internet, and they will be compared against the words in Comprehensive Dictionary of Slovak Language of the pre-1989 edition and then the re-edited version of 2003. I'm sorry. And now, what does that leaves us with? It's the current state and the planned outcomes. Since 2019, the main focus on the project, so the lexicographic treatment of Slovak neologisms, has become wider and have acquired both lexicological and cross-linguistic perspectives. In this respect, the database serves as a groundwork for more comprehensive lexicological and cross-linguistic research. The lexicological research involves, for example, the study of various aspects of neologisms, whether that be form, meaning, pragmatics, temporality, ways of extending the lexicon. And the cross-linguistic aspect aims to compare neological processes in Slovak with those in 4 Slavic languages, so Czech, Polish, Russian, and Ukrainian. Consequently, the primary model of the dictionary entry has also been extended to include the translation equivalents in those 4 aforementioned languages. And so the cross-linguistic perspective will also be reflected in the dictionary itself. The publication plan for both printed and online version is now set to be 2023, but of course we are planning to make the online version available for further editing after the publishing date as well. And I'm concluding with showing you the model of our dictionary entry. All of the features were part of the instructions given to students even back in 2012, except for the translation equivalents that are now being added in the process. So as you can see, we have included a rather extensive grammar label. This ties back to the perspective aspect that I was talking about earlier. Also the citation forms, and other information, including the register label, giving the users information on pragmatics. And so that is all from me, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Soňa. If you just leave on your presentation for a second, because maybe people would like to come back to it. There is one question that came in through the chat, and it's from Christina, and she says, could you explain in more detail how you define neologism? What criteria do you use to classify a word as a neologism?
Since we are using the synchronic diachronic perspective, we really define neologism in a very broad sense of the word, in that we consider to be neologism in Slovak language, or for the purpose of our research at least, everything that has emerged in the Slovak lexicon after the reference points of the 1989. So it's really broad perspective, and as I was saying, we really are fully aware of the tricks that are tied to that. But since this has never been covered in Slovak linguistics, that's why we have chosen such a broad perspective.
Okay, thank you. I don't see another question.
May I
Yes.
have an online question? Or
Yes.
better
Who are
to
you?
say, Vladimir Benko. I'm
Hello,
representing
Vladimir.
the Ludovich Tour Institute of Linguistics. I have a remark, not a question. First, it is true that there is no project of Slovak Dictionary of Slovak Neologism at our institute, but on the other hand, there is a project of a new large multi-volume dictionary that includes neologism. Most of the neologism you will have in your dictionary will be included there. And the second remark, your examples of floppy disk, voucher, privatization, and Walkman, all these lexical items are present in the dictionaries published by the institute, both in the concise dictionary of Slovak language, in the dictionary part of the rules of Slovak orthography, in the new dictionary, of course not the Walkman, because we didn't come that far.
Yes, of course.
And also the orthographic grammatical dictionary. So there is no reason to think that they won't be covered by lexicographers, because they are obsolete already.
Of course, these are just examples that I picked because I thought that they were a good example for everyone to understand the concept of the obsolete words. I'm fully aware that they are included, these three at least. But of course, there are some that maybe possibly will not be. So this, of course, is up to the discussion. But I wanted to at least explain our approach to why include them.
I have 3 more questions, but we have hardly time for every question, so I hope it's okay if we collect them. I'd like to ask one specific question to Soňa, and the other ones deal with questions of which criteria for neologisms, kinds of sources that we take into consideration, how do we deal with terminology or neologisms from specialized fields. And I think these are questions that we might discuss later, because probably those are not specific for Slovak neologisms, but for everything. But one last specific question to you, Soňa, is what kind of blogs have been taken as sources? You mentioned that you're using blogs, and that might be interesting to learn more about now. And the other questions we'll go back to in the end, okay?
Okay. I'm not fully aware of the project that is going on currently at the Technical University, but to my knowledge, these are the blogs from the GWLN portal and the SME portal, the two, I guess, the most popular blogging sites on the Slovak internet.
And so these blogging sites have very different topics. Can anybody join?
Yes,
what are
they are free
on?
to join. Yeah, they are housed under 2 of the largest, I guess, Slovak newspapers. So yeah, I guess they are open to the public too, for anyone to join, and they can cover a variety of topics.
Right. There are lots more questions now on evaluating specific data like Twitter. How do you find slang neologisms and things like that? We'll collect that and come back to it later. Let me just have a last look if there's something specific for Soňa. I think that we can have that as the general questions for later on, because these are topics that are really important for every language. If that's okay for the people who raised the questions, I hope I'm not being rude here, but we're trying to stick to our timetable. We won't forget the questions. We will collect them somebody said he agrees. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So thank you again, Soňa, for giving this overview on your very interesting project.